Buddy. So today I wanted to go over a specific category within the writing section. I'm going to be doing a series of these videos where I go through each of these categories, point out just some of the basic concepts and strategies that you should use for each category once you're able to recognize those. You can watch my other video where I go over how to recognize writing question types and the importance of being able to do so. So for this video, we're going to focus on these types of questions, add yes, no type questions. Not a very nice title. I'm going to come up with something better at some point in time, and I'll also go through this and make the concepts a little more clearer as I analyze it a little bit further. But I wanted to put this out there just to give you guys a little bit of content, a little bit of strategy, a little bit of advice for how to solve these questions to get you started. So the first thing is just to make sure we know what questions we're talking about. The add yes, no are the ones where basically we have a sentence either that's outside the passage or already in the passage that's underlined. For example, I don't know, one of these here. And then they ask you, yes, should you take it out, or should you keep it in, or should you add it in, take it out, yes, no. Other times they'll ask keep, delete. Yes, although the yes, no is a little more common. So these are all the same categories, and the strategy for solving these is, let's start macro. So these are more of like the reading-based writing questions, meaning the way to solve these is you have to have a pretty good sense of what the specific paragraph is about, a decent sense of what the overall passage is about, but really more so at the level of the paragraph. You have to be a strong reading, so there are reading skills involved. There are quick recognition skills, like when a sentence just feels off because of the way it's put in there. But if this is not your natural skill set, that's okay, because I think some of these tools and concepts will at least help to clarify what you're doing when you're solving these questions, so you don't feel like you're just spinning your wheels. And even if you are pretty strong at these, I think this will give you a clearer algorithm or a clearer procedure that will help you to solve these questions, and it may help you be a little more accurate. So here's sort of the steps that I would say that we're going to start with. So first step is to read the sentence in question. That's pretty obvious. So you want to read the sentence in question, and what you want to do is you want to kind of determine what the paragraph is about. I'm sorry, what the sentence is about. I'm kind of missing a step in here, so already this video is a big flunk, because I'm missing an important detail, important step right here. And that important step is going to be, once you read the sentence in question, you should also read the paragraph. So you want to read those two side by side, and you want to kind of understand what is the sentence saying, what it's about, and what is the paragraph saying, what is it about. The second step, or the second idea that you need, is you want to default to leaving the sentence in. So this doesn't necessarily mean that it's more likely that it's yes than no. The point is that your mindset needs to be, let's keep this sentence in unless I can find some specific reasons to take it out. And I'll tell you the 4 reasons, or the 4 things that I think will help you to sort of figure out when you should take a sentence out. But otherwise, if you can't find a good reason that's not in one of these categories, then you should just default towards leaving it in. The attitude that I think you should handle or should carry with you is like, I don't want to mess with your writing. You can write whatever you want, put whatever sentence in. If you think it sounds good, it sounds good. I'm only going to make a suggestion when I feel like you're doing something that's wrong, right? When you're stepping over the boundaries, or you're saying something that's off. So then for 3, we're going to look for one of 3 reasons to eliminate, right? You can see I'm also messing up here. So this should be 4 reasons or so. The 4 reasons why you would eliminate something. And the main ones are, 1, if the sentence and the paragraph, right? If the sentence is off topic with the paragraph. And that seems pretty obvious. It's like, okay, if it's off topic, then obviously you don't want to put it in there. But it can get a little bit subtle, which we'll look at as well. B says that one of the reasons you might want to eliminate it is if it interrupts something. And what I mean by interrupts is typically you'll have 2 sentences, and they'll be carrying on with an idea, and the passage will say, do you want to put this sentence in there? So even if the sentence is kind of vaguely on topic, if it's interrupting 2 sentences that are making a point, it's going to be wrong, because you're interrupting the flow or the argument, and it's going to be awkward when you put it in and read the whole passage. C says if it's redundant. So if you find that you're trying to put in a sentence or something that's redundant, it's already been said within the passage or within the same paragraph, you want to eliminate it. And then D, I'm just calling what's tacked on, but this is really the broader category of just if it's awkward sounding. And the most common reason why something is awkward sounding is when you just tack it on to the end. So it's basically like you're making an additional point that's maybe vaguely on topic, but it's just off because you're just tacking it on to the end of the paragraph without any elaboration, without any analysis, so it doesn't make sense. So you look for one of these 4 reasons, and then basically if it passes all of these tests, then you just leave it in. Answer choice 4, though, says choose correct reason and then adjust. So what I mean by this is, once you decide yes or no, in advance, right? You say either no because of one of these four reasons, or yes because again it passes through all these tests. Then you want to say choose your correct reason. I think no because it is interrupting the flow, or I think no because it's tacked on, or I think no because it's off topic, or I think yes because it supports this or does that. And then you want to sort of adjust your answers. So by adjust, I mean just do your due diligence. Sometimes they're sneaky questions, they're harder questions, so make sure that you're choosing a correct reason. If your correct reason is not on there, like let's say, for example, you think the sentence shouldn't belong, you say no, but none of the no reasons really match up with what you're thinking, then you need to adjust a little bit. Maybe you miss something, look at the yes options as well. Even if you do feel confident in your answer, I like to glance at all the answer choices just to double check to make sure I'm not missing something. So that's the fourth reason there. So let's jump in here. Let's look at some of these reasons first why you would not include a sentence. So let's look at this one. This is off topic. So the question is saying, at this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence: wheat, corn, and rice are problematic to grow in vertical farms because of the large amount of space these crops require relative to the amount of food they produce. So this is saying that wheat, corn, and rice, some of these like big grains, they're hard to grow in vertical farms because you need a large amount of space. So let's look at the paragraph and see if they make sense. And here we're just going to be looking at off topic. Let's see if it matches on topic. So how are we going to figure out what the topic of the paragraph is? So one thing you can do is just read it, the entire thing, and then sort of summarize it in your head, right? Make the proportions. It talks X amount about this or about that. But one of the things you can do is really just look at the first sentence for the paragraph. So this first sentence says conventional agriculture uses 70% of the world's available drinking water for irrigation, while vertical farming techniques are much more efficient in its use or in their use of water. So this topic sentence here tells us that this paragraph is about the fact that vertical farming techniques are more efficient in their use of water than conventional agriculture. And then here, using drip irrigation to water it directly rather than irrigating the soil, use less water, other water efficient. So the rest of the sentences continue this theme about saying that vertical farming techniques are more efficient in their use of water. So this sentence here, for it to be included or to be on topic, would have to be about the fact that vertical farming is more water efficient. And it's really not. It's actually saying something negative about vertical farming, or almost giving like an exception to when vertical farming is good by talking about the amount of space that's required. So here, this has nothing to do with the efficiency in their use of water. So for that reason, we should say it's off topic. So then we would look and say no because it distracts from the focus of the paragraph by adding irrelevant information. Very good. Or no because it contradicts a point made earlier in the paragraph. So one word of advice is anytime it says contradicts or undermines, I don't think I've ever seen an answer choice where this is correct. So if it's saying contradicts or undermines, it's almost too strong, or it would be too obvious a question if it did that. So I'm not saying for sure that you won't encounter an SAT question that violates this rule. I'm just saying I've never seen it on any of the released tests, so you should discount pretty heavily against it. Again, it's just sort of that sense of you want to avoid very strong language on the test. So for that reason, D is wrong, and we would choose C for this question. Let's look at another one here. So this is 6W14. This question says that the author wants to add this sentence. Interest in urban parks declined around the mid-20th century, but has been revived during the past few decades. So this is talking about the interest in urban parks and basically how it declined and then it's been rising. So let's see if it's on topic with this paragraph. What is this paragraph about? So this says there is no official count of the number of parks built on landfills nationwide, but it could be as many as 1,000, blah. Land formerly used for garbage is usually inexpensive to buy. It is also prolific, or there's a lot of it. The EPA estimates that it does this. By restoring the landscapes, these parks also provide tremendous benefits. So even if we haven't found a really clear topic sentence, and it might be having to do with question 3, I actually don't remember for this passage, it seems like every sentence in here is really talking about the benefits that turning landfills into parks will provide. Or in other words, basically what benefits a park will provide, so it gives us a reason for why we should change our landfills into parks. Specifically, right up here, we get this. A recent paper notes that parks are a boon, right, or a boost or a positive for communities in terms of both health and social development. So not only parks do all these things, but they also help in terms of health and social development. Then we get these two sentences here. Exercise, right, are linked to improved health. It also notes that community spaces lead to reduced crime and a stronger bond among neighborhood residents. So this seemed to continue to support the idea that parks are a benefit, and in particular that parks are a benefit because they support both health and social development, both these two sentences. And so this is the point at which we want to add this fact about the interest in urban parks. So this sentence here, for it to be on topic, would have to continue by talking specifically about the benefits that parks provide to communities, and probably specifically benefits that they provide to the health and social development of communities, which this doesn't do. All it does is talk about the change in interest in urban parks. So for that reason, we should say no. No, because it includes information that contradicts the main idea of the paragraph. No, it's not contradicting, it's just beside the point. And also we know to basically discount against answer choices that say this. D says no because it distracts from the focus of the paragraph by introducing relevant or irrelevant information, and that is basically what we're saying, so we should get rid of or choose answer choice D for our correct answer. Now let's keep going. I think we have one more here. This is a little more subtle one just to show you that off-topic could be a little more subtle than, can be subtle for some of the harder questions. So this says that fossils provide paleontologists with a convenient way of estimating the age of the rock in which the fossils are found. That's the sentence they want to add. The paragraph they want to add it to begins by saying paleontologists are using this modern technology to gain a greater understanding of the distant past with the aid of computed tomography, CT scanning, and 3D printing. Researchers are able to create accurate models of prehistoric fossils, these models, etc. So we know that if we put this sentence in right here, there's actually a number of things that are wrong with it. One is the fact that these models here is connected to create accurate models here, and if you put this in, there would be no reference for these models. The other thing is that this paragraph here is really just about the fact that CT scanning and 3D printing are allowing to create better models of prehistoric fossils. That's the topic of this, new technology helping paleontologists. Whereas the topic of this little blurb, or sorry, this little sentence here, is more specifically about rocks, right? This is saying not that fossils are cool as an end in themselves, but that fossils are cool because they help us understand the rocks, the age of the rocks, which is really not what this passage is about at all. So for that reason, I would say no, it's off topic. No, because it is now not directly related to the main point of the paragraph, exactly what we said. And then D says it undermines the main claim of the paragraph. Again, we should discount against that. So we get rid of D, and we would choose answer choice C for our correct answer. Now let's look at the next topic, which is what I would say is interrupts. So this is when you have two sentences that need to be linked together. They're making an argument or a case, and the sentence that you would add would interrupt it. So let's look real quick. So here we have 31, and this is the sentence. When it was finished, Johnson's dictionary contained 42,773 words, made it neither the longest nor the shortest dictionary of the 18th century. So this is basically explaining the length of Johnson's dictionary. They want to put it right in here, in between these two sentences, and these sentences say, on the contrary, Johnson used the dictionary to promote the words he favored and to protest words he disliked. So he wants to promote words he favored, protest words he disliked. And let's look at this next sentence here. In the definition of, or for pictorial, a term created by Sir Thomas Browne, Johnson described the word as one not adopted by other writers, but elegant and useful. And then down here he talks about the word writative is one that's not even good, right? Not to be imitated. So this is actually giving two examples now of a word that he thinks is elegant and useful, and another word that he thinks should not be imitated, right? Which would be a word he favored, and B, a protesting word he did not like. So this sentence pretty much has to come after this sentence, because this sentence here is giving an example of this claim here, and to add in information about the length of the dictionary just wouldn't really make too much sense. So no, because it interrupts the discussion of how Johnson used the dictionary to affect the English language. That's going to be the choice that we want right there. D says no because it merely repeats information that appears earlier in the passage. This is not true. It's more true here. So we would get rid of D and choose the answer choice C as our correct answer. Let's continue. Let's look at one more example. So 25, we have this. It says, at this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. It is also labor-intensive, involving several intricate steps. And here we're saying wet plate photographers essentially create their own film. The process can be dangerous given that it requires the use of several volatile chemicals, right? So this is introducing the idea that wet plate photography or photographers create their own film, and it continues to sort of talk about sort of the downsides of using wet plate photography as we go further. This sentence here might seem to be on topic because it's saying that it's intensive, involving several intricate steps. However, if we ask ourselves, does it interrupt anything, we should notice that this sentence here says the process can be dangerous because it uses several volatile chemicals. And the next sentence that's already here says that to take a wet plate photograph, photographers usually first arrange or pose as subjects before mixing Collodion, a viscous, light-sensitive chemical solution with bromide, iodide, or chloride, and applying the mixture, etc. So these right here are a list of volatile chemicals, right? Light-sensitive, all these volatile chemicals are being mentioned here. So for that reason, we're interrupting something if we're saying that we're putting the fact that it's labor-intensive and involving a bunch of steps in between here. We want these to be connected, because this is explaining, this second sentence is explaining the use of the several volatile chemicals. So we would say no. Why would we say no? Because it blurs the paragraph's focus on the dangers involved in wet plate photography, and that's what we want, right? It's about the dangers. No, because it divides an opinion. That's not true. So we would choose answer choice C for this one here. Let's look at redundant here. So this is just a quick example. I was having trouble finding some. I'll look for some more in a later video. This is right here. When it was painted in 1932, Sequeiros' mural was considered offensive, but now it is acclaimed. I don't have the rest of the passage presented here, but if you read the rest of the passage, this is an example where you'll note that that this claim that it was considered offensive is actually already repeated in the passage, which means it's going to be here. No, because it unnecessarily repeats information from earlier in the passage. So this is one example of where redundancy is a reason why we would eliminate something and not include it. So let's look now at taxon. So this is question 11. It says visitors to Jones Point can also enjoy activities such as fishing and kayaking. And what they want to do is they want to sort of put it right here at the end of this paragraph. So let's see, what is this paragraph about? This paragraph is basically about Jones Point. It's about the peninsula that's set up. It's about the fact that there's a National Park Service plaque at Jones Point. And on a clear day, looking north across the water, visitors can see the domed Capitol building rising toward the sky. So this is sort of talking about basically, this is sort of mentioning about, talking about Jones Point, it's connecting it to the history, saying there's a park, there's a plaque. And then this right here is saying that visitors to Jones Point can also enjoy these activities such as fishing and kayaking. The problem with this is that it seems to be sort of tacked on to the end of the passage here for 11, right? And so it tacks on irrelevant information at the end of the passage. And we just get the sense that it's not complete, right? They're just adding the fact that you can enjoy these activities, etc., etc. Yeah, so I think that's right. The reason I'm hesitating is because I'm actually wondering if A is the correct answer here for this one. It contributes to the description of Jones Point as it is in the present. I don't want to think about it too much right here in real time. If I'm wrong, apologies. I'll correct it later on. But for that reason, I think this is a good example of something that's tacked on. Let's move on from that one. Let's look at 25. This is a clearer example. So this is talking about what's called the slow food movement. You can read it here. It's saying there's a slow food movement. Quick on-the-go eaters were thrilled about this introduction of McDonald's, but people who valued slower regional food, they were more hesitant. So it's talking about the invention of this thing called the slow food movement. And then here we have the group's philosophy was connected to the tale of the hare and the tortoise, in which the tortoise wins the race. And they want to put it right down here where we have 25. And the idea is not too far off. It's kind of on topic because we're talking about the slow food movement, which is emphasizing basically a slowness over speed. So we could, and we're talking about the group, so this could make sense, right? The group's philosophy was connected to this idea in which the tortoise wins the race. The problem is that it's just weird when it's tacked on at the end of the sentence here. It's not really fully explained or fully elaborated on. So we could say it's kind of irrelevant. It's kind of like, why do we need to know about this group's philosophy? But more importantly, we should be skeptical of it just because of the way it's tacked on at the end of the sentence. And if we look down here, it would say D or C says no because it blurs the paragraph's focus by introducing a new idea that is not clearly explained. And that's really it. It is blurring the paragraph's focus because the new idea is not clearly explained. So whenever we have an answer choice or whenever we're trying to put a sentence somewhere that just doesn't have a flow to it, or it feels tacked on, or it feels like it's interrupting something, we should be skeptical and see if we have an answer choice that will match that. Let's move on. So at this point, all we've done so far is look at the reasons why you would eliminate an answer choice. And so maybe it seems like I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the no option. It's really because what I'm doing first is I'm looking for reasons to not include it. And then basically, if I can't find any of those reasons, then I'll just say, okay, let's put it in. And then I pick the answer choice that kind of matches that. So we'll look over some more of these later on so you get a better sense, but I just wanted to show you sort of the things that I would use to eliminate answer choices. So I want to show you two more questions because these are harder questions which will fulfill what I say, sort of check and adjust. Which means once you have your idea, you want to make sure that the idea makes sense with the answer choices that are given and then respond from there. So 41 here is saying that they want to add this little bit of information. So this sentence says, these flights allowed the USCD students, or the UCSD students, to experience microgravity. And then they want to say, and perform their experiment without traveling into space. Now, if you look in the rest of the passage here, which I don't have the entire thing represented, you're going to notice that the rest of the passage, or earlier, mentions the fact that the flights, the whole purpose of doing these flights was to prevent them from having to travel to space, obviously, so they could perform their experiments without traveling to space. So when I first look at this, I'm like, okay, it's redundant. Let's not put it in. So then I go down to no, and then shifts focus. Let's get rid of that. D says no because it restates what has already been said. And so at this point, I'm like, this is pretty good. That's exactly what I think. It's redundant. It restates what's already been said. However, it says what's already been said in the sentence, which would have to mean that this right here would have to tell us that they avoided going to space, which it didn't. All it says is that it allowed them to experience microgravity. So this little bit right here, this in the sentence bit alone, is what will make this answer choice wrong, because it doesn't restate it in the sentence, it restates it in the rest of the passage. So this is an example where you need to really check your answers and then adjust accordingly. So then I think, okay, it's not C because it's not distracting from their experience while in the flight, so it has to be A, and then A, answer choice A is the correct answer because it says, yes, it elaborates on the advantages that students gain from the flights, which it does. It tells us basically they didn't need to travel to space. So then we have another one here, which is 38W5. This is a pretty hard question. So we want to add this sentence here, which says in 1954, Edward Murrow and Fred Friendly, they produced episodes of a CBS television show, See It Now, that contributed, blah, blah, blah. So they want to add that right in here. And this whole paragraph is talking specifically about investigative journalism, right? And the results of, and this paragraph is specifically talking about the results of this work, right? They're saying investigative journalism is a lot of work. It takes effort, but basically it's worth it, and here's why, right? They give us 3 examples so far. The exposure of the Washington Post, or by Washington Post reporters, of the Watergate scandal. Then they talk about here Seymour Hersh reporting for the New Yorker helped to publicize the mistreatment of Iraqi prisoners. Then they want to add the second one here, or the third one here, about how in 1954, Edward Murrow, they did this other thing which ended the witch hunts. So when I first read this, I think it seems to be on topic because each of these examples here are used to basically talk about the fact that investigative reporting or investigative journalism, even though it's expensive, even though it's costly, is still pretty important overall. And so we have 2 examples here about basically how investigative journalism has discovered political corruption or has brought to the attention some mistreatment that's been happening. And this seems to do so as well. It's contributing to the end of the McCarthy's anti-communist witch hunts, right? So it's causing positive political change by highlighting something that's negative. So I would say yes, let's include it because it provides a supporting example. So if we say yes, we might say it helps clarify the passage's main focus. Okay, maybe that's true. However, it says passage's main focus on investigations of political corruption. And if we read the rest of the passage, it's not fair to say that the whole focus of the passage is on investigations of political corruption. It's more fair to say that the passage's main focus is on investigative journalism and the decline in general. So even though it may be true that this little piece of information here could help to clarify the passage's point, or more specifically the paragraph's point, A is going to be incorrect because of this little detail here. B says yes because it offers an important counterpoint to the other cases discussed in the paragraph, as if this little point here is a counterpoint to the 2 points here. But that's not what we were thinking. We were not thinking that it provided a counterpoint or a counter-argument. We were thinking that it worked pretty good because what it did was provided a support, right? A piece of evidence that supported it. So for that reason, we would get rid of B, which says, okay, there must be a reason why we eliminate it and answer no. And the things that should stand out is the fact that this is referencing 1, 1954, and 2, it's referencing a television show. Why is that important? It's important because if we look here, the first piece of investigative journalism that the paragraph cites is in 1974. Then it says more recently, 2004. So we have sort of this basic chronology. We're going from 1974 to something more recent to 2004. So then to mention something from 1954 is a little bit off. The other thing is to know that this is specifically talking about newspapers, right? So here we have the Washington Post, and here we have the New Yorker. However, here we have a CBS television show, See It Now. So maybe we eliminate it because in terms of the time and in terms of the medium that's being used to express or to express this investigative journalism, that's wrong. So maybe that's the reason. And sure enough, that is it. It says C, no, because it gives an example that is both chronologically, that means the time is off, and substantively, that means the medium is off, out of place in the paragraph. So for that reason, we would choose answer choice C. But what this really illustrates for us is the fact that we need to go back and check our answers and not be swayed. So if we think yes, we need to make sure we have a reason that will match it. If we think no, we need to make sure we have a reason that will match it. And if not, we need to go back and sort of double check our work. So that's a basic outline. I know that's a lot of information that I just gave you. I know a lot of it was incomplete. I hope some of it was at least coherent. So you get a basic sense of this is the strategy for solving these types of questions. Later on in later videos, I'm going to do an update on this one so it'll be a lot clearer, more clearly outlined. I'm going to analyze these questions a little bit more, and then I'll do answer explanations for each of these in a row. So hopefully you can start to get the pattern of everything that's going on. So I hope this was helpful. Leave a comment below and give me some advice, some tips on what I could do to help you guys more. Thanks so much.